Hello, Emil.
Hello, Andrea. How are you?
Fine, thanks. And you?
I'm fine.
So sorry, I'm late.
I'm not sure we're expecting more people. Let's hope for some more attendance.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Evan wanted to add something on the agenda about the Java SDK,
Okay.
but I don't know if it was for today's meeting or maybe future one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, we can get started, and I mean, if people join us along the way, I think it's fine.
Yeah, that's good.
We just okay, so here is the agenda. Let me share. Okay.
Yes, James.
Jamie.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Welcome.
Morning. We're about to start.
Sure. Sorry. Hope you don't mind me jumping on.
Of course.
Yeah, no. If there are special topics you would like to add to the agenda, feel free to do so as well.
No, nothing at the moment. As I said, I think we're proceeding ahead with the integration with the existing latest spec on the plugin that we're building. And again, I know from my previous discussions, Andrea, I just wanted to get more plugged in. As I said, I have some of the squad available to help with some low-hanging fruit, but yeah, we want to get more involved now that we're sort of a bit better set up on our side. So it's just really reestablishing communication within these meetings and seeing what's going on with the latest roadmap as well.
So are you working with that plugin on a ticket somewhere that is open, or is it closed doors so far?
We're going through the rehosting process. I think basically there's the Jenkins Cloud Events plugin. We're looking, do we adopt the plugin or rehost it? And it looks like they want to rehost the plugin. So that's the process that's going on the sides. But internally, we're building out the baseline that we can put forward for obviously the required reviews and just establishing a new project effectively for that. So that's something with Mark Waite and the core Jenkins channel we've been working through right now. So as soon as I have anything that we can tie it to an issue, Emil, I'll pass that back. But yeah.
Great.
Okay, yeah. So we have this project in the CDEvents with links to different tickets for different tools integration. So if you have something, feel free to pull it in here or share it here, and then I will add it as well.
Perfect. Great.
Okay. So for the agenda today, I had like incident events and then review of the roadmap for 0.2, SDK updates, testing events, and well, tools integration. I guess we spoke about it already. Yeah, so in terms of incident events, so the PR to the specification was merged. So this is what it looks like. We have continuous operations events now. Oh, hi, Evans, welcome. So we have incident, which can be detected, reported, and resolved. And we have the corresponding schemas here. And for incidents, we started also adding examples. And that's something that we need to bring up for the rest of the events to have examples, I think, for every type of event. So next steps for this would be to, I guess, include them in an SDK, to cut a release of the specs. So, and maybe the order of these two should be reverse. I guess we might need to cut the release of the spec first and then include them in the SDK, or we could work on them in parallel. The other thing, we'll need to update the website. Right now we have here these groups. And so we need to have an extra one for continuous operations. Yeah, and I think that's about it. I mean, there's more we can do, of course. I mean, there's we can build a POCs for using these events, but in terms of having the events available, I think these are the main next steps.
Is there an issue created for the CDEvents dev update there? Or should I create one?
There is not yet. So yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Create it there.
And just for the SDK updates, is there do you just create specific I know you got the Go, the Python, and the Java one. I know sometimes some are maybe more ahead than others. Is it just creating a specific issues for that and allowing the community to pick it up, or how is there a way you hard one and then I just wanted to know that process just so.
Yeah, we don't have a very formal process right now, but I think yeah, so create an issue for each SDK, and yeah,
just do a bulk, yeah, like the Java one you had there, you bulked it up just to sync it up. Okay, gotcha.
Actually, I can create an issue for each SDK as well. So. Right. Anything else on the incident events? Any question? Nope. Okay, moving forward, I wanted to look at the 0.2 roadmap. Since I think we are already at the date that we plan to have the release. And I moved a few of the things that we know that we are not going to do out of the 0.2. So I updated this 0.3 table, and you see things like secure software supply chain aspect and connecting events are now under 0.3. I hope that's fine. I think we discussed previously that that's not going to happen in 0.2. So what is left for 0.2, apart from doing the release itself, there is this bug about the link and the schema from the IDs that is not valid anymore. This is something on the website that I need to look into. In terms of spec, we have the abbreviations for all event types, and I wanted to check with you, Emil, if that's something still that you would like to have in this, or we should move it.
We can move it away. I would like to have it, but no, there's no rush for it. So let's move it to the next one. Again, sorry.
No worries. That's. Then we have the payload and versioning. I linked a few of the PRs that I think implemented this from my point of view. So I need to bring back the question to Ben, whether he's fine with the current implementation and we can close these, or is any other issue that we need to create. But I think from my point of view, at least the scope that we want to cover for 0.2 of this item is done. It was already done in 0.1, so it's basically having the custom data available. So I don't think there is any extra work to be done in 0.2 from my point of view on this one. And the other one is document the usage of subject object fields more clearly. Yeah, so I started a PR on that. And I think I got already review from you, Emil, so I need to address the review comments on this one. But basically the idea here is, just to give an overview, is to make it more clear in the tables for all the events, what the standard fields are for the subjects, which is ID, source, and type. So to link them to the to the spec MD, so to the general specification, and to make sure the type is there. The value for that is set, and also accordingly update all the schemas to make sure that the type value is constrained to the actual value, only value that it can take for each event. So that's what the PR is about. And as usual, I've made a number of mistakes in the PR, and thanks, Emil, for the detailed review and catching all of them. Okay. Oops, sorry. Back to the roadmap, I guess. Okay. Right. So, and that's it for the spec. And then we have some proof of concept items, like the DORA matrix proof of concept that we need to extend to include these events, and also updating existing POC with more recent version of CDEvents. So to me, this is kind of follow-up work. I don't see this as blocking for cutting the release.
And it's 41 just introducing the instant items. Is that right, Andrea? Just building on the existing POCs you've done, just to introduce obviously the new types. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have a bunch of things in the SDK areas. And so create the Python SDK. I guess this is marked as in progress. And similarly for the Python. Well, I guess this is based on this is a spec issue. I guess the Python SDK does exist, so there is work to be done on that, but I wonder if, well, we can keep this issue to track this work, but I wonder whether we should move it under the Python SDK repo.
You probably should. I will say this pull request has been open for a little bit, like for several months, and I think actually it is ready to 6 months, gosh. I think it's ready to be merged. Actually, it looks really clean. So that was one thing we could talk about here, but I didn't ask any of the Python SDK maintainers to join.
I guess this ticket was written before the SDK repository were created under CDEvents.
Yes, that's probably the case. But yeah, so I think Evan, you're probably referring to this PR, right? Aligned with Go SDK.
Yes. I haven't gone through all the files, but the ones I have, it looks really good. So I'll continue to try and read through them though.
Okay. So I wonder then, since we have this issue on this side aligned with Go SDK and spec, I would vote for closing this one actually and saying, okay, well, the SDK has been created, so we need to update it now. But
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, so that is gone. Still on the Python SDK. Okay, we have this PR that you just mentioned, Evan. Yeah. So that is going on, and there was one other item to write a README. It shows how to get started with the SDK Python, and so some usage examples. That's also something Eric had in his plan. I don't know if that's something that you might want to pick up, Evan, as well. But
Yeah, would love to. Let me double check to see what he completed. I didn't read the README yet, but I'll put that. I'll prioritize over the Pydantic. I was going to do that, but I'll happily work on a README. Just a fair warning, I'm a terrible speller. I will have my wife read over it, but also if you could double check, I kid you not, ask Jamie, I'm a terrible speller. You might just double check on the README, but I will happily work on it.
sure. No worries. I mean, what we can do also, I think on the Go SDK, we have some linter
Ooh,
enabled, some standard linter from GitHub. So we could probably set it up for the Python SDK as well to make sure, you know, we catch those kind of things in CI.
I would love that. I love linters. That would be awesome.
Okay. Maybe then I can create an issue.
Actually, I will say this. I just saw his current pull request, and the README actually looks really good. I'll go through and read the Go SDK,
Okay.
but it looks really great. He did such an awesome job. Do you mind if everything looks good on his pull request if I approve and merge it? Since he's the only maintainer for the Python one, I don't know how you want to go about that.
I would say go ahead. You could
yeah.
reach out to him on Slack, I think.
Yes, I will.
He's frequently responding on Slack, I know. But he has very little time to spend on this right now at the moment, and also I think it's fine. Or what did you say? Yeah.
Thank you. I'll happily do that.
So the README already exists, I see in that PR then now.
Yeah.
We link both those issues to the same pull request.
It's the 5 align.
Okay. Do you mind if I add you as well as a
Sure. Would love
assignee
that.
since you're working on that? Similar here. Okay, cool. So thanks for that, Evan. So yeah, looking forward to the updates on the Python SDK. And so this is in progress. One thing that is still open is like document general required features for the SDK. And I'll try to do some work around that. I think what I would like to make sure is that you're kind of consistent across SDKs, right? So if you like generate a message with the Go SDK, you can parse it with the Java SDK or the Python SDK, and they're all consistent and nice. And so there is some work to be done on this, and I'll try to figure out at least some basic testing requirement that we could have put in place that we could try to comply in the upcoming releases of the SDKs.
I just added a note there in that issue, Andrea, as well. I am thinking about now when we reach 0.2, what should we? I guess when creating events to the SDK, it's fine to just create the latest version always. But I assume that the consumers of the events, I mean, when you interpret an event that comes on the channel, you would need to be able to translate or to interpret both 0.1 and 0.2 versions right now, right? Should that be documented somewhere, how we handle those versions? I mean, we cannot probably support all old versions in the future, but for now, at least we would need to support a few versions back, I would say. So that's something to keep in mind when updating the SDKs for newer releases.
That's a great point.
So is there a reason to actually be able to create older versions as well, you think? Or is it just for consuming? I guess if your network only contains, or your system contains consumers that only understands an old version, maybe you would like to have your SDK creating that version. But it's, I don't know.
Could the version that produces the event and then whoever consumes it maybe go to Java, maybe throw the warning, says, hey, this isn't supported, but we can extract these fields. So, you know, for your SDK, older versions have these fields. If a field changes or goes away, you just give them a warning and then fail or something like that. I don't know. That might get too complicated. Sorry.
we intend to be backwards compatible between releases, but now before we reach 1.0, we might not be backwards compatible always. I think this release is compatible with the older previous one. So I would say that the consumer that currently only understands 0.1 would also understand 0.2 releases, I expect. Or maybe I shouldn't say, maybe since I haven't written any SDK, maybe you should say, Andrea, if that's the case or not for the Go SDK, for example. How would it handle an incident event, for example, now if it comes?
Well, the current one would not. I would not be able to parse it, basically.
No, of course not parse it, but would you crash? I mean, how would you handle it? Would you say something nice that I don't understand this event, or?
I think so. I don't remember on the top of my head, but yeah. So when there is a list of valid types. So let me see if I can find out.
Catch all
So
them.
this is when producing.
Default, it's not supported.
This is when producing events, I guess. There's probably when parsing events. It's here. Right. Well, if it's, yeah, basically panic right now. Function init. I think. First, oh no, that's probably. That's not the right place. Yeah, so that's parse type. Yeah, so at least the error that it returns is unknown event type. Yeah. And when you're trying to parse something, it will return the error if it's not validating, cannot validate, and then it will include the error. But yeah, so we should. So let's say I want to produce 0.1 events. I need to use that 0.1 version of the SDK. And that's what you're saying, right?
I'm saying if you have a consumer in your system that only understands 0.1, then you would require your SDK to also be able to produce 0.1 events still, even though it's compatible with 0.2 as well. Effectively, you shouldn't maybe upgrade your producer then to the newer OSDK version, unless you know that all your consumers can handle it. But I do also think that the consumers should be able to not crash, at least when unknown events come in, or events with unknown properties in them.
Okay, I see.
But if this would slow us down a bit now, because it's too complicated to code this before we reach 1.0, I think we shouldn't let that delay us too much either. So I think it could be fine to be a bit pragmatic there and require updates wherever, if that speeds us up better. But then it should be a conscious decision, I think, and maybe documented that we do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's a very good point. I mean, we should probably be consistent across SDKs on this behavior. At least, I think we need to decide whether we want to parse the event as much as possible. Let's say I received a 0.2 event and I have an 0.1 SDK. I should probably be able to read most of an event, but the event type will not be known to me because the event type has a version that is greater than the one that I'm aware of. So should we try and read the event as much as possible anyways, or should we say, no, we don't know this? And
no, I think if it's an existing event, I think we should read it as much as possible, and then any unknown properties should be just ignored.
I completely agree. I think you should try to read it. One thing I'd recommend, though, is instead of ignoring, trying to create some type of stamp or identification where in the line it broke. So when we're trying to, going back to last week's meeting, linking events, if you broke on the third parsing, so let's say, you had Go, Java, Go, Python, let's say you broke on the third, somehow saying, hey, I broke at this point. So if we're not able to read it, instead of ignoring it, just putting some type of response in there as that field could be an idea. Now that could be really complicated, but I don't know. Trying to think of linking. So if a DevOps engineer is trying to go back in and figure out where it broke, it might help them navigate, between the second and third event or platforms maybe.
Right. Good. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I think we don't have until now any special concept of reply messages, right? So we only have like the request messages. We have not anything specified for in terms of responses. But I think at least cloud events, the cloud event binding we use, they do have some requirements in terms of responses. So we could think about including context in there for people to find out more about what if I'm not able to parse a message or so.
Yeah, if there's some mechanism that can be bunny hopped off, like you mentioned, Andrea, makes sense.
Okay. That feels like yeah, there's quite some work to be done in this area. But I don't know if we want to block 0.2 at this stage.
No, I don't think we should.
Probably not. Yeah.
No. So what would we really need to do in that issue then? Is there anything we really want to keep in that for 0.2?
So initially we had like unit test coverage, conformance test, in the spec version in the SDKs. I guess this is related to what we were saying. I guess maybe not for this release.
I mean,
Okay,
given
so
the scarce resources we have, I don't think we can. We will delay the release a lot if we would include something like this. I'm afraid. And it's more related, of course, to the SDKs than to the protocol itself. So of course the SDKs will come slightly later, even though we would like to have them at the same time. But of course, the protocol needs to be merged before the SDKs can be finally done.
yeah. Okay. I would then move it to 0.3, but I think that's something that should be high in the priority, especially now that we're starting to integrate as CDEvents or these SDKs into tools. So we should try and avoid having like inconsistent behavior or breaking things too much. So I think that's after we release 0.2 is probably the next thing we should make sure we have a clear story about from the SDK point of view, at least.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so with all this, I think what is left, and just to summarize, is the schema link is broken and that needs to be fixed. I guess updates on the PR that I made already for the subject field. And yeah, I guess merging the Python SDK. And that should be it in terms of doing the 0.2 release. Is there anything else?
The new issue I just created in the website as well, the latest one there.
Oh yeah, okay.
That should be there as well, I think.
Okay,
Is there
so in
something else,
terms,
by the way, to do on the website for 0.2 for releasing with the versions and such?
yes, I think there are things that needs to be done there. And also, I just noticed that right now, for instance, if we click this points to 0.1.1.
Yeah, that needs to be updated.
But it should be 0.1.2 because we have a 0.1.2. And I guess when we do a release, a 0.2 release, it then should point to the 0.2 release. But we don't have anything. I guess we have these releases.
And there it says in the text as well, 0.1.1 on the start page there for the documentation. The first line,
right?
Both there and also in the first line in the section there.
Yeah. Okay. So that all needs to be updated.
Yeah.
I guess I can. Sorry, website 38. Okay. Good. So the approach we have right now is basically we only show on the website the latest one, and everything else goes in the links here, and the link just links to GitHub with a tag. So we need to move the old ones to these links and then add the new one there. Okay. So going back to the spec, I wanted to decide then on a date, because currently the milestone is marked as due for March 13th, which is today. Should we try to aim like for a week from now with a few things left?
It's mostly on you, Andrea, so I guess you need to say.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm also off in the
to.
end of this week, so I'm not able to help in Thursday, Friday this week.
Okay.
So I can't review them those days.
Okay. So we need to. Yeah.
I think I can get the Python stuff done in a week. It's nothing major. So the setting up the basic CI for linting that GitHub checks, I might need might take a little bit of time, but I think I can get most of the Python stuff done in a week.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Well, we can still move it forward if we don't make it for next week then. But yeah, I would want to try and keep it not too far away in the future. Then we can still try and get that 0.3 version before CDCon. That was the original plan. Okay.
I do have one more question under if
Yes,
that's okay.
please.
So I pinged you about this, and I will get the Java maintainers for the SDK on. But one thing I was hoping to do maybe for 0.2 or 0.3 is to have the Java SDK be put in the Maven central repository because the work's already been done. When we do release the Java, the Jenkins plugin, having that in a Maven central repository so people can compile the file that they'll upload to the tool, the Jenkins tool, would be critical. So
yeah,
You
I
should
mean,
create that maybe then as well to make that happen.
yeah, I think there is a PR already. I'm
Oh,
not sure
there
if
is.
it's
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
linked to an issue
I think
though.
it's done, you, isn't it?
it looks
yeah,
really
there is a-
good. Yeah. I read through the Maven documentation, the Apache Maven, and he looks like he did everything really well. I just, like you said, Andrea on Slack, I just need to get the Java SDK people to come to the meeting and discuss it and kind of see what else needs to be done.
Is there any decision or anything that we need to be concerned about as a project in general? I mean, do we need to decide things like what the name of the SDK will be in the central repository, or is there any security key token, things like that that we need to store somewhere?
Yes, so there is
Yeah.
the security token that I think you brought up. This pull request was opened 6 months ago. That needs to be stored in GitHub. The name of the like how the artifact essentially will be stored in Maven is based off the POM file. So y'all have done dev.CDEvents as the higher name. I forget what it's called in Maven, and then the actual artifact name parent. I think it's parent, and then artifact. It's like Java SDK CDEvents or something like that. So that'll be driven off of the kind of the POM file. But generally, I think he covered most of the stuff. But yeah, there are tokens.
I think it could be the security related things that have left it while it's there that need to be mopped up, right? To your point, Andrea. So, like, we're not blocked. We can continue bringing it in house, but it's. I think to your point, Evan, it's more. Would be handy for teams to be pulling it in more accessibly.
Once we release it, there it is. I apologize. It is the GPG private key. Oh, I forgot the Sono type.
Okay. So is this something that we need to generate?
He already generated it.
Okay.
I
And they're
believe-
stored in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think we just needed to have the discussion about the generating and storing of the keys. I know you can do that on GitHub, I believe, but that was part of the conversation that needed to happen. And if this can't be released to like 0.3, 0.4, totally fine.
Okay. Just wondering if we need to have something like a tool where we can store secrets accessible to the team. Is that something like a tool like 1Password would help with, or do you think we should just store it as into GitHub?
I would research that. My experience with GitHub has only been in the past 6 months, so I don't know about storing credentials. I could have Sworn, if I remember correctly, he did in the pull request talk about storing it there, but it might be better to store it in an external tool. That's something that I would probably get the input on the Java maintainers to get their thoughts on it, or maybe the community as a general.
Yeah, so they're like in GitHub, you have like these secret and variables that you can store, and then pick them up from basically GitHub Actions.
Excellent.
But yeah, so that could be a starting point. But I don't know if someone, it might be worth having like some external tool where we put secrets that are shared by, I don't know, release managers in future, so that we can get all the secrets that are required there.
No, that'd be lovely. And it depends on the tool too. You know, this is the release, the standard release manager for Java. It's going to be different for Python and Go. So it might be good to have an external tool. But I've never done releases for SDK, so I'm learning this stuff too. Would you like me to start a post on Slack asking everyone their thoughts on what they would recommend?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd
Thanks,
love to do that. And then can you tell me one more time? It was called One Secret. What was the one that you liked?
There is one password. It's a password manager.
Perfect.
I just mentioned this because I think that's what CDF uses.
Okay.
And we started using it now in Tekton as well, because they have kind of free license for open source projects.
Ooh, cool.
So you can, there is a small process to follow, but basically you submit your project name to a page on one password site, and then you get basically free license or something like that. But
Awesome.
it's a password manager, so you can use it to store secrets of different kinds. But that's so I don't know what kind of integrations they have or APIs to pull those secrets automatically, but at least they could be available for release manager to copy paste in the worst case.
Yeah. I mean, if it's just copy and paste, and then maybe we create a GitHub action that runs like a shell or API call to then pull them in to automate release orchestration. Absolutely, we can do that later, but that works for me. I will make a post on Slack and then tag the Java maintainers and get the community input saying this is where we'll first use this, and maybe just start some fun conversation, hopefully.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now when we talk about Maven there for Java, should we have the same for Python? So we have a PyPy publishing for Python as well?
Yes, I think we should. Right, and for Go, I guess it's automated. It's done by the tooling, the Go tooling directly, so you don't have to do anything extra there. So that makes life a bit easier.
No secrets needed then.
Go is that great? Why are we doing these other SDKs? Everybody should just convert.
It will help, as you say, with the more frequent releases, that discoverability of the specific, it would help the integration.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think it was brought up in a previous conversation about licensing. We will need to have the license, the standard license for a lot of this. And I don't think I saw that in some of our, or some of the SDKs.
Right. It might be missing. So thanks for bringing that up. So if you want to edit, I think we do have the license. Let me bring it. Yeah, so we do have the license in the spec, which is the Apache license. And so what we discussed in the beginning is to use the Apache license for everything within the CDEvents project.
Okay, cool.
I guess except for if we create content, we may want to use Creative Commons and those kind of things. But for specification and code, we're thinking to stick to the Apache too. So if you see that missing, yeah, feel free to create a PR to edit. It would be most welcome.
I would love to do that. Does it differ per, so again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know licenses very well. Do I need to state, and I'll look it up if I need to, this is for Java, this is for Python. Does that make sense for the license, or is it just a general license?
No, it's a general
General one,
purpose. Like, so you just copy the file as it is. You don't need to worry about.
That sounds
I think
awesome.
I know we're adding some items here. I'm sure you guys are shooting toward, like you mentioned, Emil, some of the releases you want for CDCon. And I think once our baseline plugin is in place as well with the existing spec, we'll be, again, hopefully have more horsepower to pick away at some of these items as well.
Yeah. I'm not trying to add more. I'm so sorry. This is a random idea.
No, it's good.
Good.
No, I mean, this is great. I mean, we have not had the bandwidth or the manpower to handle a lot of this thing. So it's great to have, you on board, asking all these questions, because yeah, we need to fix all these aspects.
That works. I was just reading through the Python packaging and it talked about the license. So I was like, oh yeah, it said that about Maven too.
Cool. Yeah, we have 6 minutes left. Anything else for today that we need to discuss?
No, nothing for me. This is great. Really appreciate this, guys. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, thanks everyone for a great discussion today, and see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.